everyone, it's Brianna, and today I just saw a post that today is National Grief Awareness Day, and so it inspired me to make a quick little video of me talking about my hospice practicum where I dealt with grief and loss. I have a bachelor's in child development, and one of the classes I took was loss, death, and separation, which just terrified me, like seeing that printed on a schedule, because that sounds awful. But I took that class the same time I started getting involved with hospice, and then that was in spring, and then that fall I did a hospice practicum, a child life practicum, and I am so grateful and blessed to have had that opportunity. I think it helped me professionally but also personally, because just in so many different situations that I've been in since taking that class and having the hospice experience, I have found myself having those hard conversations that before I would have been like, I'm not gonna go there because it's scary and uncomfortable and vulnerable. And now I'm all about, like, let's take on the really heavy stuff, let's talk about it, let's just sit here in this moment of pain and processing. And anyways, the thing I want to talk about today is kind of, I think, the misconception I had about taking a hospice practicum. I had prepared myself for death to be really hard and to deal with dying people, and I have never been, so my practicum's complete, I have never been with a patient as they died, so I expected that would be happening the whole time I was there, and that never happened while I was there. Of course, patients did die, but I was not there with them in that moment. So I had mentally prepared myself and psyched myself up to how was I going to deal with whenever people died that I was around. And I wouldn't even say that that was the hardest part for me. I think the hardest part for me was seeing all the losses that led up to someone's death. And I think a lot of times we look at those things and say that they're not worthy of being grieved, and you're not worthy of having a moment to be sad about those things because my loved one is still alive. But at the same time, I'm also sad because we're not able to do the things that we used to be able to do together. And so it changes traditions, it changes like day-to-day life, it changes how you interact with that person. And so I have two sisters that I love and adore to death, and I'm so grateful for the relationship that I have with them, and I'm a very close-knit family kind of person. So that was really hard for me too, is seeing siblings, but especially sisters, grieving sisters, and seeing that desire to be close with them. And so I wish I would have thought more about how the little things lead up to the big finality of death. So I would be so sad and like carrying this weight of, oh my goodness, what I just witnessed was so sad, but then I would be conflicted because, well, they're still alive and they're still here. And so whenever people ask me now like how that was and how it was dealing with the death, I don't even think the death was the hardest thing. I think the hardest thing is all the small, I don't even want to call them small, all the losses leading up to it, a loss of opportunity, loss of ability, whether it's speech or whether they lose their movement, just all the contributing factors that lead up to someone actually dying. I just want to say that those are significant and those are worthy of being grieved and felt and processed, because I think a lot of times we get hung up in trying to justify our grief, and grief does not have to be justified. It doesn't have to be earned or ranked or compared to someone else's, because I think the biggest takeaway I took from my loss class in school was that a loss is a loss, and whether I lost my car or whether I lost my dad, I can't compare one to another, because how you are experiencing your loss in your life is totally different than what the loss of a car or a material item may be. And then we all can, I think it's just human to imagine and to have hopes and dreams. And so whenever you have a desire or a dream to grow old with your loved one, or walk your daughter down the aisle, things like that, whenever they don't happen, we feel that loss because it's something that we had built up in our head and in our mind and our heart, that we can't actually do. And those are losses that we experience the first time around, like probably a realization, and then whenever the moment comes and it can't happen, or a failed attempt. Say you used to always play basketball and then you try, and then you see it in that moment that I can't do this thing that I've always been able to do so well. And then after death, those moments reoccur and you have to deal with that, with the person not being there, and just the reminders that, oh wow, Brianna would have loved this, or so-and-so would have been great at this experience or opportunity. So yeah, I just think that whenever I talk about hospice with other child life students, a lot of times it's like hospice equals death, and that's what the loss is. That's what we're losing, is life. But there's so many things, other things outside of that. And so I don't know how this comes across to you. The point and the purpose of making this video was to say that all the contributing factors, you need to be mindful of that if you're going to be a student who wants to work in hospice. I wish that I personally would have had this realization before starting my practicum, and then thought about, okay, what am I going to do whenever this family looks like me, this family has relationships like I do, or illnesses that have affected me and people that I'm close to. Because I think that's really hard. We are all human and we want to help people, but then whenever I can identify with someone that I'm helping, it's almost like too close, because that like protective self-protection comes in, and it's really uncomfortable. But then there's the struggle of, well, I'm a helping professional, how do I approach this in the best way, but also like take care of myself in this moment. So yeah, it's tricky, but I'm so grateful for the opportunity I had to work with families in that time. Just in every aspect of my life, I feel like I am richer, and it was such an honor to be able to share those moments that I did with the families and individuals that I did get to spend time with. And yeah, I think about grief and loss a lot, and it's not something that people want to talk about. And I think that I want to talk about it because I know it's not something that will come up naturally, and something that people are scared to bring up. And so I like being able to approach those conversations in a way that shows people that I'm not scared of what you have to say. What you have to say is normal, and processing it out, like through conversation or through your actions or whatever, is normal and healthy. Because I feel like so often, I don't know if it's society or the American culture that I don't know what it is, but we don't want to be vulnerable and to share that side of us with other people. And so, yeah, I'm really grateful for being able to have those conversations and to not be scared of them, for the opportunities I had to share with families and individuals on hospice. And it just makes me so grateful for the life that I have and the people I have in my life and the experiences that I've lived so far. It really puts life in perspective whenever you work in that field. And so I'm just so grateful for all the hospice professionals that allowed me to partner with them for the time that I did. And want to encourage you, if you're a student, to definitely get involved with hospice. I think a lot of times child life, we just look at the hospital, but there's a growing field of child life professionals in hospice, and I would love to see more. I would love to be a child life specialist in hospital or in a hospice setting, but still got to get an internship, so we'll see where that leads me. But just since then, I've been able to have these conversations about grief and loss in so many different settings that I think after I have these conversations, I'm like, Kelly, who's my practicum supervisor, would be so proud of me because of how I handled this, and I just am so grateful that that I had the experience that I did. So I would highly encourage you to do that, and also to think about, what are triggers going to be for you? What are sweet spots in your heart that are going to hurt whenever you experience them while working with hospice? And then just try to bring gratefulness into every day that you have with yourself, with the world around you, and your loved ones. So yeah, that's that. Okay, I'll see y'all later.